All right, so despite annual inflation, the highest annual inflation in 5 years in June, latest report shows that consumer confidence in Indonesia is still optimistic when the rest of the world is facing uncertainties, some even bankruptcy. And to talk more, we are joined by Teguh Wicaksono, the head of the Mandiri Institute. Hi, Pa. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Hello, Krishna. Thank you for inviting me.
Right, Pak Teguh, so last time we spoke, you mentioned that inflation is not affecting consumers. The latest data for consumer confidence was not released then. And then not long after that, it was released, and you were right, it was still quite high, consumer confidence in Indonesia. Please explain to us, in this current condition of economic uncertainty around the world, some countries going bankrupt, why are Indonesians still confident about the country's economy? And does it mean that Indonesia's economy is still doing quite well at the moment, Pak?
Yeah, I think one factor is that the government, despite uncertainties, somehow this government can manage prices. Like inflation rate actually is manageable, and this gives boost to consumers. So our data, the latest data, even in July, in the beginning of first week of July, we still see that spending actually is increasing. So even when we compare between year on year, June 2020 compared to the last year, the spending grew by 32%, which is higher than the level of May, which is 19%. So the spending growth is accelerating despite rising inflation. I think, so far the government has been quite successful in managing, the domestic economy, particularly prices. And another aspect is the fact that the government increased subsidy. So basically, the impact from administered price on inflation is quite manageable. Even though, I mean, I think few days ago, government decided to increase some fuel category, for instance, like Pertamax Turbo or diesel. So I think so far, as long as the inflation rate is manageable, I think the consumer remain confident. And also don't forget that when we enter by July and August, I think the situation is much different if we compare to July and August last year, during this Delta explosion. So for instance, like school start, face-to-face schooling. This will give a boost as well on spending, particularly on school-related spending. So we still expect that spending grow by this month, and I think in the beginning of August.
Right. So are you optimistic that Indonesians, their purchasing powers will still remain sort of optimistic or still remain strong in the kind of months to come? Or is there a point where, at a certain point, do you think purchasing power will kind of weaken because of higher oil prices, for example, and food prices going up around the world? Or do you think Indonesians are going to just keep on spending for the months to come?
I think, again, it depends on the government, policy decision about this fuel subsidy, particularly on the low-level fuel, for instance, like Pertalite or, diesel. So if, the pressure probably will be on the government side. For instance, if the oil price continue to rise, at the end of the day, the government need to, adjust the price. But again, if we look at on the current statement of Pak Presiden, I think the government seems to keep the fuel, particularly the low octane fuel, at the same price. So again, we might expect that as long as there is no shock coming from the fuel, I think consumer remain confident about the decision. But again, the another thing that we need to observe closely, I think, is on the real sector, particularly on the industries that rely more on import raw materials, because we have seen that given this volatility, real sector seems to be okay at the moment, but financial sector, I think now is a bit volatile. Like our exchange rate now a little bit above 15,000, and
Right.
it might. And I think it already affected the industry that rely more on imported raw materials. And
Right.
if this affect this industry, then it might affect on the employment as well. So far, I think we can see that the government manage somehow the economy, but
Yeah.
if this volatility become untraceable, then it will be hard to. I mean, the pressure will be much higher on the government side.
Right. So you were speaking about the financial sector just now, and also about the rupiah. It's going above 15,000 rupiah per dollar, or hovering around that range. So as we know, just last night, the United States reported inflation of 9.1%. The Fed, will likely increase interest rates aggressively. So rupiah has, dropped to 15,000 or there above. Do you see the rupiah depreciating even further with the dollar strengthening amid these fears of the Fed raising rates, Pak Teguh?
Yeah, I think the Fed will be much more hawkish given this 9.1% of inflation rate in the U.S. And our concern is, like given that the Fed will raise Fed rate, then what we experience is something like tightening in the U.S. Dollars, and it will be difficult. I mean, and it will give pressure to rupiah. And at the end of the day, I think I expect that Bank Indonesia will raise interest rate as well. So that's what I expect in the next few months, probably quite sooner than we expect.
Right.
I mean, previously we expect that probably in the end of 2022, but probably given that the pressure from inflation, domestic inflation rate, and also more hawkish action from the U.S., I think it will be earlier that BI will raise interest rate.
All right, so you're projecting Bank Indonesia could raise rates earlier. But so just very lastly, very quickly, because we're running out of time, but Indonesia has received a lot of praise from other countries, from China's foreign minister. The World Bank is also praising Indonesia's economic performance, while everyone else is, sort of falling apart. Do you think that Indonesia deserves that praise, or, like you said, Bank Indonesia could be raising rates faster than expected? So, I mean, are things good right now, or in the next months to come? Is there some worry, coming for Indonesia?
I think two factors here. I think first is a good coordination between monetary authority and Ministry of Finance. I think really good, and we need to praise them. I mean, to manage the domestic economy from this volatile global world. But at the same time, I think we should remember that we are so fortunate because we are commodity exporters. And this help us, our economy, shield from the volatility. And this is different from countries, particularly those countries that import a lot of oil or energy. So far, we are doing really good, and we expect that the economic growth will be on the 5% or above 5% trajectory.
Right. So you're projecting Indonesian economy to still perform quite well amid many global uncertainties. We are still quite lucky, as you said. Indonesia is a commodity exporter. Pak Teguh Wicaksono, the head of the Mandiri Institute, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Pak.